Okay, here we go. All right, so what we're doing here is the bakery, and we're looking a little bit more deeply at our loss. You remember from before, this is the data you worked with, and you took the bakery costs that we had assigned to the segment. You split them between SG&A costs and the bakery so that we could get the unit costs. And then also I've got B1 here, which is where that came from, right? Where all that came from. And also we need this per unit values. So these are going to be very important as well when we go to put together this analysis. So to be able to make the decisions about the bakery, you've got to split the costs of the bakery into two areas. Those that are avoidable, that we can get rid of 100%. So if we do shut the door on the bakery, we know that these costs are definitely going away, as opposed to those costs that have been allocated to the bakery but aren't necessarily avoidable. So for instance, the owner's salary, or a portion of the trash. So for instance, the people that pick up our garbage, they charge us a fixed fee to come and take that dumpster of garbage that we have. They don't weigh it. They just, every week they come and that's what they charge us. And we spread that cost out over all the segments of the business that we have. So that cost isn't going to change even if the bakery gets closed. Even though we have less trash, that's what they charge for a weekly pickup. So there's some costs that are going to have to get assigned now to the roasting business and the cafe because we don't have the bakery. So that's actually going to make the other segments less profitable if we do it. So we say those costs aren't relevant to this decision, right? We can ignore them because they're going to exist either way. And I want to do what's called a differential analysis and just focus on the bakery. I don't want to pull in all those other pieces. It's too much work. So just focus on what's going on with the bakery. Right. And then we classify them as variable or fixed. So notice there are some fixed in the avoidable category. So this is the avoidable category. Those are fixed in the sense that they're discretionary fixed. So I incur them and they're treated as fixed costs, but they're actually discretionary, as opposed to other costs that are not avoidable. Those are truly fixed. Those are committed fixed costs and they cannot be avoided. All right, so let's get started with the analysis. You got some yellow boxes to fill out. What we're going to be doing is looking at our profits for the bakery business and rebuild it based on what the difference between avoidable and unavoidable. So let's get started with that. The units are back over here. If you remember, this is where we calculated the number of units, right? And the price was also back over here. That was $4.50. And then you can just multiply that across to get total sales. And that is the same number we had here. So that's where that came from. Now you can just copy those down. Actually, let's do a $, C, $23. And then I can get rid of the decimals and just pull that down. That's perfectly fine. Okay, the per unit amount for direct materials is back over here. Let's get that. The direct labor is right here. Now this one, the variable manufacturing overhead, I'm going to have to kind of back into that number because manufacturing overhead isn't split up that way, right? It's in total on this particular analysis. So I'm going to fish it out and figure out what this is on a per unit basis separately. So let's start here then to do that. So I'm going to grab G5. So I'm in this manufacturing overhead column, G5, I want to make sure I get the right ones. Yep, that's G5. And G8, yep, and G10, and G14, and G15. So those were what I had considered the variable costs of manufacturing for the overhead. All right, so now that I got a total, I can get the per unit by getting total dollars over total units. Okay, so there's about 50 cents in variable manufacturing costs. And then the variable selling administrative, I've got to do the same thing. So that's in the SG&A column. It's going to be D14 and D15. These are the variable pieces. Not very much, but it's something. Those are avoidable. Okay, then you can calculate contribution margin per unit by taking the price minus variable costs. Oh, I see. I haven't finished. That would help. Sorry. This times this, yeah. And we're gonna do that again. That's better. That's the number I was looking for. All right, so we make about 3 cents. So let me explain what I just did there. I got a little confused myself. So I'm just multiplying through units times price to get the extended direct material cost, which is the same as this, right? And here I'm multiplying units times the direct labor cost, which is the same as this, right? So those were the direct materials and direct labor. And I gotta add all of them together, and then I can get my contribution margin. So what that's saying is we only make 3 cents. That's the number I was looking for. 3 cents per muffin. It's not very much. Every time you sell a muffin, you make 3 cents. It's not enough. All right, now you got to get your avoidable fixed cost, which the promotion and selling we said. So that's a fix and it's avoidable. So grab that. And we're going to grab the depreciation because I said we're going to be able to sell the equipment. All right, so that's total avoidable fixed costs. And then here, what you're looking to do is say, okay, these are avoidable and these are avoidable. So the variable costs are definitely 100% always avoidable. And you got some avoidable fixed costs. So 2 of them. All right, and that number does dovetail with this. So you know you nailed it. Okay, so this is what you would save, right, if you close the bakery down. So you do generate some revenue, but this is avoidable costs. So the net difference between the sales and the avoidable costs are what you would save if you close the bakery down. Now these costs exist no matter what, so you can go get those. Put a minus in front of that before you do. All right, and there's where that 18 is coming from, right? So these will exist no matter what. So this loss isn't relevant. This is the one that's relevant to the decision. This is what you would avoid losing. So you won't lose, you won't get rid of all of that, but you'll get rid of most of it. You'll get rid of 14,636 of that loss. Because this is unavoidable. It's going to get allocated now over to the roasting business and the cafe. So when you're looking at this, this is the number you can add back to your bottom line as profit. So you can add back to the bottom line if you close the bakery and sell the equipment. Okay. So down here, I'm asking you to figure out, if you wanted to keep the bakery, how many units would you have to sell to break even? So what we do here is grab total avoidable fixed costs, and you divide by D31, which is that contribution margin per unit. So that's your formula, if you remember, is fixed costs divided by contribution margin per unit. That's how much money you make per unit. So you're taking that fixed cost that's avoidable, that you can get rid of, and dividing it by the 3 cents. So you'd have to sell 436,000 and change. It's just not even realistic, right? And so I did a proof here, and it's an automatic fill so you could see it. And yep, that's exactly right, we break even, right? We would still be out this, we'd still be out this because we're gonna incur that no matter what. Okay, so we'd still lose money, but we'd lose this anyway. So it's not relevant to the decision. We would break even at that number. And then I said, what if we increase the price to 6? So remember, we're charging $4.50 right now as our price. What if we increase the price to 6? What would the volume have to be? So let's restructure this. Go get the, you can do it right there, that's fine. E64, so following the instructions I gave you. And then divide that by, not the contribution margin, but because that 3 cents is based on 450. So you gotta start over 6 minus that variable cost. That's how you get contribution margin. And yes, I do want to accept that. All right, now that's more reasonable, right? That would be 140% growth rate, all right? Which would, sorry, be much more reasonable. It's much more reasonable for us to think about selling 9,000 items as opposed, you know, we're already selling 6,000 and change. So if you run that out, you can see that you're breaking even still at $6 and your volume come way down into a reasonable range. So if you think you could get $6 a muffin, like, I don't know if you can. It'd have to be pretty darn good. I'm not sure you'd get that volume out of it. If you increase your price, I would expect your volume to go down. So I still don't think it's very feasible. But this is how you set this up and how you go about testing whether or not the changes that you wish to make or would like to make have an impact on whether or not you can keep this bakery afloat. Now, I did not analyze if they sold items to somebody else at a better price. So if they started selling cakes and maybe providing bakery services to some other business that was selling coffees. Not sure they could do that, but obviously those are other things we'd want to look at and consider. I just wanted to get you started, get you thinking about how you have to split out your costs between avoidable and unavoidable so that you can then analyze what are the true costs that go away if I close this up, because not all of them are going to go away, right? So that's why you have to make this distinction and then rerun the numbers to get break-even point and go from there. Play with the price, play with the volume, see what happens. Okay, I think we're good. Yeah, if you have any questions, please let me know.